Hello, my name is Marjaneh Rouhani. Today is September 9th, 2021, Thursday. I'm honored to be in the presence of your homes, wherever you are, all the freedom fighters. This is our constitutional movement program, and I'm honored to be a part of this grand movement that has turned into a global movement. We started the program by the constitutional meanings and the law and order that has been overstepped and overlooked in Iran, along with Dr. Saeed Hamzavi, who participates and also initiated this program in Farsi. We have two programs on Mondays and Fridays, and has been very well received, and it's all about law and order. And as the program unfolded, a lot of strange things started happening, meaning that what appeared to be the third world seemed to be kind of like a black mold spreading all over the world, where everybody or most first world countries started overstepping their law and order, or what it seemed to be their law and order and constitution. And in my opinion, they haven't still developed any leadership or any meaningful opposition to kind of really accept part of being able to fight tyranny and being able to be victorious is to know the enemy. And as long as you don't know the enemy, you cannot proceed. Basically, you just keep frozen in fear and frustration and confusion. And that's the state we've been for the past many months in many countries. And everybody is yelling out for their law and order, and to the surprise of their options, the elections are overlooked, the legislations, people don't speak up, the lawsuits are just thrown out without being looked at. And the evidence is there, but human acceptance and feeling like you have been sabotaged by the people that you trusted, and they have taken oath to protect you while we go along working and paying taxes and raising children. It seems like that relationship has been severed. And unless we accept that there are some things massively wrong, if we see the world upside down and we are in shock, like the poles have been reversed, then we shouldn't question our sanity. We should always have the self-esteem and trust in ourselves to accept what we see right in front of us. And what we see, we are looking at the eye of the evil, pure evil. And evil meaning against humanity, against human rights, against Nuremberg Code, what happened during World War II. The reason actually there were many Holocaust survivors, or those who had survived went to schools, high schools in America to teach and to remind all of us how small things can start to roll and snowball into a huge phenomena by anybody. Anybody is capable of any crime or any goodness, as that for that matter, and we need to focus on what every human being is capable of, to be able to focus on being good and not hurting each other. And part of democracy is actually practicing your freedom until and your boundaries are on the fringe of not overstepping somebody else's freedom, and not insulting them, and not bullying them, and not eliminating them from society. And there seems to be, like, throughout history, there's this small group of people who is always chasing a caste system and wanting to feel like there are a few people who are sitting on top and kind of looking down on other people. And I think that's a psychological projection of feeling small and feeling abandoned and feeling unloved, and not having experienced kindness and love from even childhood, or not having capability of having perception of love or kindness. And therefore you kind of project it to other people. And then if you're wealthy, extremely wealthy, and we saw basically how the wealth kind of switched hands during the past 18 months to 2 years, from all of middle class pockets and lower middle class pockets to the super wealthy, to the point that to the point that they actually show off. They go to space or pretend to go into space, and one of them actually went to space and did not even get the credit for it, for whatever peculiar reasons. These super rich or super billionaires, which is only a top 3,000 billionaires in the world, and the rest of us kind of compose the majority. And for us to kind of allow competition, allow human dignity, to allow human advancement, that's been part of the pride and part of accomplishments of our modern human history. And that basically there's been a lot of deception in that. It seems like people have been able to advance, but during the past, I want to say 40 years, all of a sudden we noticed, and if you look back and flip the pages of history, the past 40 years, you notice that there are people who all of a sudden, everybody was developing these massive, unbelievable technology or businesses or innovations in the back of their garage. And most of us, being busy, did not look further, assuming, human being in our modern society is able to advance, go to their own innovation, or rely on their own brain and start mapping out what, or making a blueprint of what it's in their imagination, and even from a garage develop this phenomenal technology that impacts the whole globe. And I think, looking back, we all now seeing the background of everybody who developed the technology or some sort of a life-changing event the past 40 years. In their garage, they were filthy rich already. They had so much access to everything already, and for some peculiar reason they wanted to seem part of people, so that I think for us to not reject them and to kind of blend in with the rest of us. And now that the time has come for this quote unquote new world order, where this actually Australian lady kept saying the new world order. Yesterday she was announcing the new world order is composed of testing and this virus that's never going away. And basically, now that the time has come in, I mean, the first person I think who announced the new world order was the father George Bush, and it kind of started. The implementation started many years ago, and now we are seeing the real rollout of. It's like a building that has been built behind a big cover, and now it's time for it to the cloth or the fabric to be removed, and for it to roll out, and it's going to impact many lives, billions of lives. And basically life, as they said, may not be the same. And that's the predictive programming that they have, and by they, those who are part of this billionaire club, and the famous quote from George Carlin, the comedian, God rest his soul, said, there's a club and none of us are part of it. And so by they, I mean the people who are part of this billionaire club, who think down on humanity, and they think they're better, and they kind of swivel their way into kind of like even Elon Musk, for example, who seemed like very kind of wanted to be part of the youth, and kind of looking cool and talking cool, and saying small words, and then the whole financial market may move for certain coins, or whatever he was saying, it would impact the youth, because they wanted to blend in with the rest of us. But now that time has come in to say, no, you're the lower caste and we are the higher caste. And you know, like India, for example, they had the caste system where a huge number of them, the majority were called the najas, or untouchables, or people to keep distance from. And it seems like we are stepping into an era of a caste system where we are all najas people, and anybody who does not join in, or does not and doesn't even have a choice, because basically we don't know what is transpiring. We don't get the accurate news or adequate information to even be able to make decisions. And when you don't have information, you cannot make decisions. And at this moment, for example, in this upside world where we are talking, for example, we know that, for example, now that today President Biden is gonna come in the afternoon and in the evening and announce mandatory injections for all the federal employees and all the contractors. And we don't know to what extent this is gonna kind of move into imposing as an executive order, rather than being something that is decided by the Congress or decided by people or through a referendum, because medical information or medical decision making for the past how many years, has been a very private decision rather than coming from the top of the mountain and rolling out as Moses says, basically. And having said that, we see a lot of issues with the injection program that has not been for humanity, and the data is not supporting prevention or the vaccination definition to the point that CDC had to change recently, just I think maybe a couple of days ago, changed the definition of vaccination, and only saying you would think that they eliminated the word prevention and it's only protection now. Basically, there's no vaccination definition, there's medication definition. The name of it seems to be vaccination, but for example, the definition seems to match up with any chronic disease treatment, like metformin, or hypertension medicine, like diuretics, ACE inhibitors, vasodilators, all the chronic treatments, or even antidepressants, their protection, their treatment. And by change of definition, we are given a message that actually this we don't have vaccination anymore. And so we have to make up our mind whether that order from President Reagan will cover this protection against the companies or corporations who are basically saying that if there is any damage done by any vaccination, they're protected and they are you cannot sue them. If the CDC has changed the definition to chronic condition and just protection or treatment, basically, then that protection is lifted off those corporations. So we have to make up our mind and kind of see what's happening here. Or is it because these vaccinations are going to be here to stay and there's no end to them? And as, for example, what happened in Israel, people, when they received their green passes, after receiving 2 jabs, now they are told that despite the fact that 90% of people who are in the hospital, in CCU, and have had hospitalization because of the corona infection, COVID-19 infection, they're considered unvaxxed unless they receive the booster and the fourth, they may require a fourth jab. So basically, rules are being planned out or laid out in front of us as or being made up as we go along. So we are being promised certain things, and you would think that you're a good citizen and you follow the rules and the law and you're a law-abiding citizen and you want to be saving grandma and you want to be saving grandchild, and you see the opposite of it, that you didn't save anything, you were just taken basically as a person who is following orders, and you wanted to do your patriotic or humanitarian part, but every turn we turn to do that, it seems like we hit a cul-de-sac and we hit the dead end, in the sense that the goalpost has been removed now to another goalpost. And you have to do extra things. And what we are observing in Australia, where the iron boot is on the neck of our brothers and sisters in Australia, they are kept in concentration camps. The news is scarce from Australia, and they have to report in 15 minutes through an app to the government. That the state has completely turned into a dystopic nightmare, and most of the news has been kind of censored. And there was this clip that came out of Australia by a person who was kept in the concentration camp, and they are supposed to be kept there for 14 days, and apparently they're not. One of the persons was yelling and screaming on the tape that she wanted to be let out because she had met her 14-day limit, and the person or the police or the authority over there was saying that if you don't comply, you will be gassed. And the clip of it is available so far, and you can look to see what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Australia. We see what's happening, the Holocaust that's unfolding in Israel, and Dr. Zelenka is saying maybe 10% of the Israeli population will survive, and the numbers of death climbing up. And the West Virginia governor unfortunately reported just over the past few days that there are in their state, who was a very enthusiastic state to roll out the vaccination program or the injection program, 25% of the fully vaccinated got hospitalized, 25% of them died, and 21% of them were having breakthrough infection and got into the CCU. And so you would think with all of that information, there seems to be two branches. The algorithm separates. One algorithm of thought would be, okay, if you have this data, this technique or this method of protecting using the CDC vocabulary, the protection has not worked. And so let's look into other avenues to protect our population and to make sure we are doing right by the population. You know, it just in the scientific realm, if something has not worked, we don't keep doing the same thing. I mean, if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same results or even worse, because we haven't even tested the booster shots. We don't know of the fourth injection. We don't even know what's the content of the injectable material inside the vials. Of course, there are certain reports coming out of Spain, coming out of Italy, coming out of the United States, coming out of Japan, that there are possibly a mesh-forming magnetic material that inside the vial that will merge through the new technology with our new cortex and our brain system to eventually form the Internet of Things as an Internet of Bodies, as the World Economic Forum, as the United Nations, and as the Rockefeller Foundation kind of planned out for all of this planet without elected or without people knowing. Literally, we know that there was this huge environmental meeting or Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, and it was just a kind of a understanding among nations, but certain countries moved to really start implementing, and through implementation, it was not an obvious implementation. It was, in a way, through distraction, where people are watching O.J. Simpson or watching Michael Jackson death or other entertainers or other distracted technique things going on, and then behind closed doors, legislators are being passed one after another against the Constitution of the United States, for example. I can talk about that. And now today, when the president, they're kind of the CNN was talking about the president coming this evening, then it kind of overstepping all of the Constitution in the sense that we don't have any medical privacy. And especially with the digitalization and what actually Klaus Schwab said, that at some point the digital world will merge with the biological being, even if there are some people who want to do that. I mean, there are people who want to be chipped. There are people who enjoy the ease of showing your hand, opening the door, locking the door, or turning on the light and having, instead of taking off your keys. But there are people who don't want to do that. And I think that's something that, again, needs to be decided by people themselves rather than imposed on everyone. And so that brings me to what's happening again in Afghanistan has been kind of completely engineered to really distract and for all of us to look somewhere else, while some fat cats are plotting against humanity to rob humanity or rob all of middle class or people really who generate the wealth for advancement for humanity, poetry, science, cooking, nutrients, going to the gym, physical activities, all these, the art and, the movies, everything, theater, that innovation that will be taken away by this implementation cannot be overlooked and needs to be looked at by a team of ethical or people who are really concerned, and it has to be a transparent ethical committee where we are all privy to looking at them, not some NGOs that are formed by the same people to create the same situation that happened during a slavery era of throughout history. And basically we are the moment we have a president of the United States normalizing slavery in China, saying it's their culture, that should be a red flag for all of us. The moment we don't hear anything from any free country, any concern, any mainstream media mentioning what's happening in Australia, it's a red flag. Nobody mentioning all the suffering our brothers and sisters are going through in Israel is a red flag. When no mainstream media mention anything that happened in November 2 years ago in Iran, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when Iranians were being slaughtered just because they announced what they wanted, their law and order, Constitution 1906 with the progressive referendum of 1963 by Shah of Iran, which was named the revolution between Shah and people, where land were given to people. We had free education, free a lot of amenities were given to people, but most importantly it was the land. And I think it boils down that that revolution that happened in Iran in 1963 really ticked off a lot of land grabbing countries or powers or corporations who do not want individual people to own their land. And we saw it roll out in India, for example, where the Monsanto company had the genetically modified seeds, and when the genetically modified seeds kind of creeped up in the land of the farmers, when the farmers went to court to say that, look, they're coming to our land, and these seeds are kind of raping our lands and growing in our lands. The court actually ruled for Monsanto Corporation, said that because the seeds are there, then those acreage belong to the Monsanto company. And this is the same thing in the way that, for example, if, for example, in this technology that is supposedly now by the new definition for protection, quote unquote, of us, or humans, and then you get labeled by that genetic modification the same way the seeds in Monsanto were labeled and genetically modified. If every human is now genetically modified and belongs to a corporation, are they human now? Are they being prepared and kind of prepped up for the next level to be transmitting things that are private, and we belong to a corporation now, and that corporation can tell us what to do and how to do things, or kind of scan us and say that, oh, okay, you're not human and you belong to us, your organs belong to us. I mean, these are the questions that need to be answered before we kind of make a major decision about our genetic modification. This is the next level that no time in history we have faced it, and we know that the data, for example, the VAERS data, the vaccination reporting data in the United States, since the scientists were following and coding the VAERS system, which is very, very difficult to actually register, and any doctor who was actually reporting any data was reported that they were being rejected or not accepted, or the program would go offline or would take a long time, and it was very difficult to report. It magically stopped at the 12,000, and it didn't move anymore. And we know so there are a lot of upside down. We usually want to report. We know that initial we've had vaccination rollout before, and if reaches 25, one of them reached 25 people who died or were damaged and they're injured, the whole program is stopped. But this seems to be beyond, the intention seems to be beyond the health of humanity. It's for the wealth, the wealth grab from humanity, where basically we will be loaded up our salaries or our wages, and then we cannot save. The rest of it will be whatever we spend for the week or the 2 weeks or the month that the government allows. Then the rest of it will be automatically drawn digitally through the Internet of Things, through the Internet of Bodies, Internet of Banks, to the central system. And so you as a human being, you cannot save, you cannot inherit any wealth or any goods from your loved ones. You cannot have a trust or live, we all work so hard to kind of give a higher platform to our kids to kind of and leave them with some of the memories or some of the albums or belongings that kind of creates our own family history. Everybody has their own family history and family story. And that seems to be taken away in the sense that we also see live in front of us for the first time that the family unit is actually very disrespected, and that you're not in charge of your children. And we all know parents, I mean, love, I mean, there are parents who are abusive, but at the same time, the majority of parents, mothers and fathers, love their children. They change their diaper. They don't even put the Johnson and Johnson powder on their kids. They change them. They change the diapers so fast. They put them in the best school they can afford. So they know the best decision for their kids. And for us to kind of assign our kids, sign over our children, which was done before actually in Argentina, I think, to sign, but it was after they killed the parents actually. We have to kind of understand what are the dangerous waters and the dangerous territories we are stepping into, where there will be no mother and father, or no children's sense of belonging. The masking is taking away the humanity. We all know the virus, for example, is only 1 micron, and the fibers in the mask is 3 micron, and that it gives just a sense of security, which is okay. I mean, that's not the main argument. If somebody feels safer to wear it, that's fine. But the distraction is the most important part of it, is money, money, money. And to inventory all of this planet, all of our belongings, any old purse you have in the back of the closet, it seems, any note you have from your grandfather, everything. The water under the ground, the resources. I mean, those are the big things. But even the smallest things to be inventory, like a goat or a cattle that they're just given a certain amount of food or water just to survive, and then go to the slaughterhouse. And there's no other way of comparing it. And to kind of reminds me of the goat teacher in Wizard of Oz, where there was this little man behind the curtain. And if human beings are able to see themselves empowered and they know what they can do, then that little man behind the curtain cannot do anything. And I think when you look at the tape from the beautiful tape from the college kids, they're wearing red, and that's how at least in America, the civil disobedience takes place, and it's very proud. Where all these kids, and you have to be not human to be mad about that, because it just makes me smile thinking about all these beautiful young kids in the stadium, in the football stadium, yelling and screaming, happy, hugging each other. And when Dr. Fauci came in and he was mad about that, it's obvious that we need to kind of really go the other direction, because if the kids are happy, that means that's the normal thing. And even in pediatrics, the doctors always say, is the child happy? The first thing they see is if the child is smiling. And if the child is smiling, the child is not sick. So then we saw Fauci came in in front of television, that how he was worried, and he looked pretty upset about that. And it's not Fauci per se, but I think it's not a personal he has a huge team behind him who is trying to implement all of this. But the civil disobedience starts with doing the opposite of what the evil powers or these minority or this Soviet union that's being formed basically by in the format of do as I say in the name of science without any data, and actually speaking against the existing data, because as the West Virginia governor speaks of those statistics, there would be two houses. One is that he is saying, well, because there are so many people sick because of vaccination, we would have to give a booster and we want to do it right now. And then there is this other house of people who are saying, no, stop, because we don't know what was given made so many people sick. And to kind of really see which house do you belong to, and what is the most important thing to follow, the common sense or something that's unknown. And I think what happened in Iran when Khomeini came in Iran, and an unknown entity with few minority, like it's happening in Taliban. There's a few, and they have no power, they have no skills, literally, and the propaganda is making them look like entity or a government. They're not a government. They don't have any power. They don't have any skills. They sell themselves for a pill of Viagra, according to the article in New York Times. So this is just an optical illusion, and we, as we are walking in the smoking room, the room of mirrors, like the last scene in Dragon Enters the Dragon in Bruce Lee, we need to be careful who is on the humanity side and who is not on the humanity side. With that, I really appreciate the International Television Iran Aryai. I'm grateful to Siavash, our producer, Mahnaz dear, who is picking up the phones as we speak, and Mr. Aryan Vatankhwa, and especially Dr. Saeed Hamzavi, who has been an enormous treasure of information for constitutional movement, which is becoming a global movement to keep humanity, law and order in place. Until tomorrow, 12 noon, New York time, I thank you for being with me.